You're watching Oilers Nation Everyday with Tyler Yaremchuk. Your one-stop shop for all things Oilers.
Welcome into the show, live from the Sports Closet studio. A little chill Friday edition of the show. No lead, nothing like that. Gonna keep it tight today, but we do have a big guest joining us on the show. We had a chance to sit down and interview now former Bakersfield Condors captain Brad Malone a couple of days ago, or yesterday, I should say. So got a really good chat, actually. Told them, like, hey, quick 10, 15 minutes, hop on the show, talk about your career. We ended up going close to 25 minutes with Brad Malone. So we'll get to that in just a little bit. As always, the show is live from Tap the Sign, the Sports Closet studio. Check them out online at sportscloset.ca. Everybody listening along in the Greta Bar Yeg YouTube chat, I appreciate you. But let's get into a few things. We do have a short for Giant offseason question that we need to hit on. But first, a little bit of news from earlier in the week. I'm not sure how interesting it really is. I mean, Leon Draisaitl, congratulations, Leon Draisaitl, and his now fiance Celeste on their engagement. Awesome, cool. Back-to-back summers with major Oiler weddings. If that's something you like to follow, excellent stuff. I will say the only part of this that is even the slightest bit remotely interesting is the fact that he liked to comment that said, "Congrats, my big guy. That extension coming at a good time to pay for that ring. Woo," from Morgan Ellis 4. They follow each other. Leon liked the comment. I mean, I kind of assumed that I'm assuming living my life with the assumption that the extension's getting done in the next 4 to 6 weeks at some point. And I've said this a bunch of times. We're just going to wake up and like, there'll be a tweet from like Frank or Friedman or someone at like 8 a.m. that'll just be like, the Oilers and Draisaitl are getting close. And then later that day, the Oilers will announce it. And the day after, Leon will be in Edmonton. He'll sign the paperwork, give a big thumbs up to the camera, talk about how excited he is to be here, and we'll move on with our lives. Like, he's going to be an Oiler, in my opinion, for the next 9 or more seasons. It's just a matter of when they put pen to paper on an 8-year extension. So, maybe a little reaffirming if you're nervous, the fact that he's liking comments like that. He's thinking extension. His agent said he thinks an extension is going to get done in Edmonton. So an extension is going to happen. If you want to dig into things a little bit more, I did put together an article yesterday on the Oilers cap situation heading into next summer. And it's like, whoa, Tyler, what the hell? Why are you talking about next year's cap situation? It's a pivotal summer for the franchise. You got to get Leon done. You got to get Bouchard done at some point. I know there are people who are like, is that possible? Can you basically, I ran through this scenario of how the Oilers could commit $24 million to the two of them and still be okay with their salary cap picture in some ways they can free up money 12 months from now, which I fully expect them to do. So they'll be fine. If you want to dig into that a little bit more, go ahead, give that article a read up at Oilersnation.com. But for now, let's get into our Giant offseason question for the day. It's brought to you by our friends at Sherwood Power Sports and Marine, your one-stop shop for everything you need: fishing rods, reels, tackle, boat accessories, motorcycle gear. If you're going outside this summer, Sherwood Power Sports and Marine has got you covered. Also, shout out to our friends at Sherwood for the Giant and their fantastic service department, the mobile service van, the valet service, countless bays to get you back on the road this summer. The Giant question of the day is simple as this. And it's kind of from what Colby and I talked about, our winners and losers of the offseason the other day. But how many teams in the Western Conference truly got better? And this is something I did tackle earlier in the week on Oilersnation.com as well. And the whole idea of like, should the Oilers be the favorites to win the West? I know the books, and shout out to Betway, the books have the Oilers as the favorites to win the Cup, win the West, win the Pacific, all that stuff. But, there are other factors in that. Public money, things like that can push those odds in certain directions. So are the Oilers actually deserving of being the favorite? Let's start in their division and kind of go team by team, I guess, to get an answer to the Giant question. And we'll start at the top. Vancouver Canucks. I mean, what did they really get up to this offseason? Well, from where they were 12 months ago to where they are today, they're better. From where they were 12 weeks ago to today, that's where I'm not quite as sold. When you look at this roster, they won't have Elias Lindholm. They don't have Nikita Zadorov, both gone out to Boston. So the blue line, if we want to go from the Zadorov perspective, Hughes, Hronek, great. Susie, Myers, both a year older. Not better, maybe worse. Derek Forbort, Vinny Desharnais. That's not as good as having Nikita Zadorov on your third pairing. So Vinny, good. I think he's an everyday NHL defenseman on almost every team. That's fine. Derek Forbort, solid everyday NHL defenseman, but they lost a little on the blue line. Up front, JT Miller, Brock Besser, and Danton Heinen on daily faceoff is their top line. Okay, that's not as good as having Elias Lindholm in your top 9. You didn't really upgrade going from Lindholm to Danton Heinen. You got worse. Second line, Pettersson, Hoglander, Jake DeBrusk. I guess that's where you'd look more on the Lindholm comparable. And I guess one way to view it is like, hey, Lindholm wasn't that good for the Vancouver Canucks. So going from him to DeBrusk and getting DeBrusk, who's younger on a long-term deal, is a win for the franchise. I agree. Does it make them better next year? I'm not sold, but again, if you want to take the angle of like, well, Lindholm wasn't working, he wasn't a fit there, so DeBrusk should be better. It's no guarantee DeBrusk is a fit either. So I don't know. Third line, Dakota Joshua's getting paid now. He's not a bargain value kind of deal. So, they need him to repeat what he did last season. Connor Garland, they need him to remember, they gave him permission to seek a trade at one point last year. He then got hot down the stretch and was good against the Oilers in the playoffs. But I'll be honest, I don't like their forward depth as much as I thought I would, just kind of looking at this. They have good players. Pettersson, good. Miller, good. Besser, good. DeBrusk is good, too. The third line is decent. Are they better than they were last year? I think you could argue they are at best the same, and their PDO is going to come down. No Lindholm. Zadorov, the blue line is worse. I think they're worse, actually. I'm fine saying the Canucks got worse. Oilers finished second last year. Right behind them were the LA Kings. I think the LA Kings got worse. And part of getting worse, I didn't like the coaching hire. I felt like they really needed a fresh voice there. All they ended up doing when they fired McClellan was elevate Jim Hiller, and now they've hired Hiller full time. I don't love that. They go from up front, they go from Arvidsson to Fogle. Clear-cut downgrade. Looking at the daily faceoff lines, they'll be banking on steps forward from guys. I think that's an expectation or maybe a bet they're making. Maybe Alex Turcotte becomes an everyday NHLer. Maybe Quentin Byfield has another gear. Maybe they added Tanner Jeannot. I don't like Tanner Jeannot. He's relatively tough to play against, I guess, but he's going to score you, 12 goals? Blue line, they lose out on Matt Roy, but again, banking on improvement. Brandt Clark becoming an everyday NHLer. He's good. I like him. Jordan Spence, everyday NHL, or taking a step forward maybe. My argument would be how much more of a step does he have? What's his ceiling? But swapping Matt Roy for Brandt Clark and Joel Edmondson, I don't know. I think Joel Edmondson kind of stinks over an 82-game season. I think he's fine as like that deadline guy you add in. Between the pipes, I guess, is what you're looking at because they have Kemper and Rittich now. But remember, Talbot played good for them last year for stretches, and ultimately in the playoffs it let them down. And Darcy Kemper didn't have a good year. I don't know, going from PLD to Kemper, it makes sense because you got out of the long-term mess that's Pierre-Luc Dubois' contract, but Kemper is, I don't know if he's an answer, is what I'd say with that. So I think you can honestly look at the Canucks and Kings, the two other Pacific Division playoff teams from last year, and be like, they're both worse. I think you can say they're worse. Vegas made the playoffs as a wildcard team last year. They're team number 3. I think the biggest reason to think Vegas will be better is full season of Hertl, full season of a healthy Mark Stone. That helps. Steps forward, yeah, they took a flyer on Alexander Holtz. They got Brendan Brisson coming up through the system. Maybe he takes a step forward. They're still deep down the middle. Like any team that can go Eichel, Hertl, Carlson, Nicholas Roy, or Waugh is legit. They're good on the wings. Olofsson, Stone, Holtz on the right side. Barbashev, Dorofeyev, Brisson on the left side. They're just not as scary as they used to be for me. You lose Marchessault, you replace him with Olofsson. That's a downgrade. They lost a 40-goal scorer, didn't replace him. You can look at the Oilers. Edmonton didn't lose a 40-goal scorer off their roster and then failed to replace them. They added more pieces. So where Edmonton's trending, I think, very clearly up, Vancouver and LA are going to be in some sort of either a flat line or a decline. I think Vegas, from their 98-point season last year, I think they're going to be, if they are up, it's a little up. I could see them being at 102, 103 next year, but their blue line's still good. Goaltending, Aiden Hill's proven it now, I think, enough that you don't have concerns about that. So, yeah, I think Vegas is number 2. I think if I had to power rank the top 4, it's very clearly a top 4 in the Pacific. It's Edmonton, gap, Vegas, smaller gap, Vancouver, LA, gap. And I mean, Calgary is going to be junk. They're irrelevant. San Jose could be better. I don't think San Jose finishes above Calgary, though. The Kraken probably above both of those two. Oh, I think the Ducks will also largely be irrelevant. I think, those bottom 4. Seattle got good players. They just overpaid them. So in 3-4 years, I don't think they'll like Stevenson and Montour at that price point. But for now, you like Stevenson and Montour because they make you better. So I think Seattle goes up from 81 points. They're better. They're going that way, but they're going that way to get to like 90, I think, not to the high 90s and getting into the playoff picture. Calgary from 81, I'd have them down at like 65. Anaheim, I'd have them in the high 60s this year. Got to be some steps forward at some point. I like Dostal as well. Anaheim will be a bit better. San Jose will be better. So to answer part one of the question, how many teams in the Pacific alone got better? Vegas got a hair better. No, Vegas, yeah, okay, a hair better is fair. Anaheim will be better, but they didn't get better, if that makes any sense, but they're largely irrelevant. San Jose will be better. Signed Toffoli, Celebrini, Will Smith's coming, all that. Calgary got significantly worse. Yeah, I think, honestly, Edmonton positioned themselves where, okay, Vegas and Seattle are notably better, but they won't be threats. So 2 teams in the Pacific, I think, got better. In the Central, I think is interesting if we're talking about the Oilers maybe being the 1 seed in the West. You'd have to close a 9-point gap in on the Dallas Stars. And Dallas, to their credit, I think had a solid offseason. It wasn't sexy. It wasn't flashy. This wasn't like a go make a big trade, move out your first round pick and whatever. But you look at that depth chart, just as good as it was last year. Same players, right? They're kind of just running it back. Stankoven, full season could be better. Maverick Bork's going to be an NHLer next year. What's Wyatt Johnston's ceiling? Health up front will be a big thing for them as well. Now, things broke their way last year. Matt Duchene had a hell of a year. Tyler Seguin had a hell of a year. Can those 2 guys have great seasons again? That's maybe the one area up front I could see them stepping back. On the blue line, Harley Heiskanen, Lindell Labushkin, Smith, and Dumba. It's a good enough blue line. They lost Suter. I know they got banged up last year as well, but like they'll be okay. Between the pipes, run Ottinger, Casey DeSmith. Maybe it ends up being Matt Murray there, the St. Albert Matt Murray, not the old Toronto or current Toronto goalie. I don't know what the hell's going on with Matt Murray. But Dallas is like, we're using kind of the graph thing again. I think they'll be like the same, which means 110 to 113 points. So they're the biggest threat in the West to the Oilers because I think Winnipeg got worse. Nate Schmidt wasn't working. They buy him out. Don't exactly go replace him. They lose Brendan Dillon. Don't exactly go replace him either. Up front, you picked up Monahan halfway through the year. You picked up Toffoli halfway through the year. Those guys are gone now. And their forward group is fine. Like it's relatively deep, but I also look at it and I go, like, hey, Connor, Scheifele, Velarde, love it. Ehlers, Nemesnikov, Perfetti, meh. Niederreiter, Lowry, Appleton, meh. Gustafsson, Barron, Iafallo, meh. Do they really just have like 3 third lines after their top line? It's not a stretch to say it. Maybe I should give more love to that Ehlers line, but still, he can't stay healthy. Hellebuck was a Vezina Trophy goalie last year. Can he do it back-to-back seasons? If any goalie can, it's probably a guy like Connor Hellebuck, but still, I don't see them at 110. I see them low hundreds, high 90s. They'll be in the playoff picture, but I don't think they're going to finish 6 points ahead of the Oilers again. Colorado's in an interesting spot because they're still in cap hell. They brought back some pieces. That's great. Who knows what's going on with Valerian Nichushkin? I think the expectation is he's not playing for them again. So you look up front and it's a bottom 9, if you want to call it, after the McKinnon, Rantanen, and Drouin line. Again, can Drouin do what he did again? Because that was a big reason why they were able to be as good as they were last season. They have good players. I'm not saying they don't. They'll be solid. Like, they didn't get better, is my point. Landeskog coming back will help, but again, it's Landeskog after 2 years off and Nichushkin out. Taves, Makar, Gerard Manson, Dahan Brandstrom. Top 4 is good. Bottom pair leaves you wanting more. Goaltending, I think a bounce back from Gorgiev is certainly a possibility, but their forward group is just as good as last year at its best, and they still have cap things they got to figure out. Who knows if they can keep a guy like Ross Colton, right? So Landeskog at his best will cover what they lose in Nichushkin, and then they're the same team. So I don't know. I think they're banking on a lot of things going right for them this year, but I could see them, again, breaking 100, being in the low hundreds maybe. So in the Central, out of the playoff teams, the only one that got like noticeably better is Nashville. And the team that wins the offseason, very rarely goes out and wins the next season and is this powerhouse team. But I don't know, man. You had 2 40-goal guys to a lineup that really struggled to score, and then you look at a blue line now that's going to be able to roll out Shea, Yossi, Lauzon, Carrier, and then Spencer Stastny, Luke Shen. Whatever happens on the third pairing happens on the third pairing, but they do have Luke Shen there. Oh, and UC Saros, really good. Extension. No more drama around him. I think they're second in the Central next season with home ice. I think they clearly pass Winnipeg. I think they have a really, really good... I think they pass Colorado, point blank. I think it'll be tight. I think I could see Dallas being at like 110 and Nashville being at like 107, 108, like tight gap there. So it's like Dallas, Nashville, tier break, Winnipeg, Colorado, or Colorado, Winnipeg, tier break. And honestly, I don't like what St. Louis did. I don't see any reason to think Minnesota's 10 points better than they were last year. Don't see any reason to think the Blues are 10 points better than they were last year. I think there's reason to believe Utah's 10 to 15 points better than they were as Arizona last year. But what's 10 to 15 get you? To the low 90s, maybe not a playoff team, right? I do think the playoff cut line is going to come down because I think there's some shrinking here. San Jose won't be a 47-point team. Chicago got a lot better. They won't be a 52-point team. Anaheim will be better. Arizona will be better. Where we had this gap of from Nashville at 99, Vegas 98, to then 92 and 87 St. Louis, Minnesota, then all the way down 47 San Jose. I think what we'll have is like the worst teams in the West will be high 50s, which means, you know, Chicago, San Jose probably taking 10-plus point improvements next year, which I'm actually okay banking on. But there'll be steps up. And I think at the top, while we might have an Edmonton get to 110 and Dallas gets to 110 and be in that range, I think everyone else is below 105 versus last year. It was Vancouver 109, Colorado 107, Winnipeg 110, Dallas 113. 4 teams above that 107-point mark. I think there's only 2 this year. So to make the playoffs, you might only need 93 because I think the conference is a lot more competitive just because of some of those middling teams, Seattle, Utah now, and then the bottom feeder teams are going to steal more wins throughout the year. Kind of, yeah, I think it'll close the gap. So, you know, my take on it in the end, how many teams in the West got better to just go bulletproof, like bullet point right through this thing? Dallas, the same at best. Winnipeg, worse. Vancouver, same at best. Colorado, same at best. Edmonton, better. Nashville, better. LA, same at best. Vegas, same at best. No to St. Louis, no to Minnie, no to Calgary. Seattle, yes. Utah, yes. And then the bottom feeders did get better, but part of that's just natural elevation. They're trying to take a little step in their rebuild here. So I think there's only 4 teams in the West who noticeably got better, and only one of them is going to come even close to threatening the Oilers, and it's Nashville. So 3-horse race for the top of the conference: Edmonton, Winnipeg, Nashville. That's my take on it. That's my answer to the short for giant question. All right, let's move along here with the show. Very excited that on Friday, we're going to try to bring you as many kind of cool interviews as we can. This one is a former player. I think going forward, we're going to try mix in just some popular Oilers fans and try to do some different stuff on the show because it's the summer. We need to mix things up a little bit. Don't want to be talking hockey for the next 8 weeks when there's no games or no news going on. But anyways, very excited that we were able to get Brad Malone, the longest tenured captain in Bakersfield Condor's history, on the show. So let's kick it over to the Star Mechanical guest line and give you that conversation with Brad Malone. Star Mechanical guest line, Edmonton's #1 plumbing and heating company. You can check them out online, starmechanical.ca. Residential, commercial, they handle it all. It's hot right now. You need AC. Star Mechanical has you covered. Very excited to be joined on Oilers Nation every day by the longest serving captain in Bakersfield Condor's history. He is officially retired as well. Brad Malone joins the show. Brad, how's it going?
Good, thanks. Let me just get my phone set up here. Sorry, dad duty's getting me all whacked out.
No, I love it. That ties in perfectly to where I wanted to start this. What's the first kind of month or so of retirement been like for you? Just full-on dad duty, or what have you had going on?
A little bit of golf, a lot of dad duty, a lot of pool time. So school finished up here just at the end of May, and then our youngest is doing daycare like 3 times a week. So a little bit of me time, but a lot of cooking, a lot of cleaning, and it's been good.
14 seasons as a professional hockey player. So this is the first summer in a long time that you haven't been training for the next year and all of that. Have you been like totally kicking it up and relaxing, or are you still like a bit of a sicko? Are you still in the gym like 5 days a week kind of thing?
No. I got some injuries that are just not allowing me to go. I'm doing some coaching here in town for a few of the local kids that are trying to get out of town and just get ready for their junior camps or AAA camps. So stay on the ice that way, but maybe some golf workouts if I get eager next to the pool, but no hockey related exercises.
What are your expectations for the golf game now in retirement? Like how good are you right now? Like what's your handicap?
I'm sitting at a 2 right now, so yeah, I'm doing okay. Living in Bakersfield here. Luke Esposito, played with him for 5 years here, and he's a Harvard grad and just a massive brain for information. So golfing with him all those years, throwing back beers with him, it was just it was like golfing with a golf coach. So he brought me down from like a 10 all the way to like a 2. So a lot of my golf credit goes to him.
Damn, that is really impressive. But I guess, yeah, living in Baco, why not? Is the plan for you to kind of stay in Baco going forward? Or are you taking that home?
You know what? We're actually still trying to figure that out. So, you know, I'm Canadian. My son's Canadian. My daughter's American, and then my wife has a green card. So, just trying to be a legal resident of the U.S. is a little tricky, but got a few irons in the fire here. Just trying to figure out what is next, but certainly trying to stay in hockey.
Yeah, we'll get to that a little bit later on. Definitely want to ask you about that. But just going back to, the decision to retire. When did you kind of know it was time? Like, did you go into last year being like, this is probably the last ride for me, or was there some things that popped up during the year that pushed you to it?
During the year, yeah, I think it was like game 8 or 9. We were playing in Calgary, and a guy like threw me over Wolf and landed on my back, and the lidocaine cream came out, and I played the next game pretty much numb. Ken was in the building like that night, and I was trying to, potentially get a call up, and then I saw Earns go up and Hammer went up, and then after that, it was just groin injury and then adductor injury, and it just really, I just couldn't really move. I thought I had a really good summer, worked on my skating, and got a lot lighter, but once your back's attached to everything and everything's kind of getting pulled in different directions. I got some imaging done and had like 3 bulging discs, like L3, 4, and 5. So it was, one day it'd be great and I felt amazing. And then the next day I couldn't really go. So it was difficult for the coaching staff to trust me. And then obviously when you can't skate, especially in this day and age, you're pretty much deemed useless.
It's a harsh way to put it, but there is also that element in sports. Like, we always kind of laugh, like in regular life, you're 35 years old, you are still in your prime life wise, but in sports it's like 35. It's like, oh god, okay, it's getting kind of ancient here sports wise. But anyways, with the retirement and all that, I wanted to take a look back a little bit at your career. You made your NHL debut back in the 2011-12 season with the Avs. You scored your first goal in the NHL the following season. I guess quiz time. What do you remember about that first NHL goal with the Avs?
Well, I remember who assisted on it for sure. Oilers legend Tyson Barrie, and then the second assist was Ryan O'Reilly. My other line mate was Jamie McGinn. All 3 guys I like to have beers with after games. So, it was pretty cool for those guys to be a part of it. And funny enough, a buddy of mine in college, his like fake name was Joey McDonald. And that was the goaltender I scored on. So I thought that was pretty funny.
Fake name, as in fake ID?
No, like you would like tell, girls that his name was Joey Mack. So I don't know how that happened, but the universe allowed it to happen.
You went on to, like I said, play 14 years professionally in hockey. Are you one of those guys, like, again, just looking back at your first goal there, are you one of those guys who can like remember all your goals? Like, if I were to throw you a date and be like, you scored on this day in this arena, can you remember like all the details? Like, I think Steven Stamkos is the guy who's famous for like any goal he scored in the NHL, he could tell you every detail about it.
Well, what did I score? Like 13 or 14 goals. So it's not a vast memory of, pulling things. Obviously, yeah, I could probably nail all of them. I don't know about date, but if you said arena, I would tell you exactly how I scored them.
Do you remember your lone goal as an Edmonton Oiler?
Yeah, you can't forget that one. And the last one, yeah, that was good.
I remember that one because I was sitting, me and my producer Aaron were watching highlights while we were getting ready for this, because I remember that goal. I was sitting like row 8 in that corner as well, and it was like a pretty big game against the Capitals. Like, that was a somewhat, if I'm remembering correctly, pivotal point of the season. But do you remember who you were on the ice with, who assisted it?
Yeah, Cass and Bush for sure. So another, funny coincidence, 2 guys, D-man and a forward that, good friends and look up to. So yeah, no, that was a good one. I really wanted to have a good night that night, just especially, Washington was the one organization that I felt just didn't have a good relationship with. I got traded from Hershey in like February, just over a kind of a vet status thing, and they threw me into the Shattenkirk deal. So a lot of those guys in that team were still there at that time. So, to get a goal and an assist against those guys was a pretty good way to say, screw you.
And it ended up with a 3-2 win for the Oilers as well. And like I said, a pretty pivotal point. Going back to kind of your early days and whether it was, going through college or even before that, was there a moment for you where it kind of clicked and you're like, hey, like I'm good enough to do this and make a living as a professional hockey player? Was there ever that moment, or are you maybe one of those guys who like all you ever wanted to do was play hockey, so there was never a doubt in your mind that you could make it work?
It was the only thing I was focused on. It was, tunnel vision in terms of, what needed to be done and how it needed to be done, and whatever I could do to get exposure or, if, in my case, get a commitment from a university and then play junior and get to college was really it was kind of the big hurdle. And then once I committed, and then getting to college, obviously that was a huge rude awakening just in terms of, playing with men and the next level of guys and playing with some first rounders that had, high expectations for themselves and being around them. That was then the next big hurdle, is to, be as competitive as them on a nightly basis and as consistent. So college for me, the 4 years that I was there were pivotal for me to have the career that I had. It allowed me to just identify what I needed to do to be a backup, I call it a backup game, but a B game. So in the NHL, my A game obviously wasn't scoring. It was checking, forechecking, and energy. And that's something that I learned to, play as and with in college. But also I think it was, naturally that was my strengths as a player when I was younger. But, just being a bigger kid a lot earlier in my life, it kind of I was just allowed to do that. But obviously as you get older and you play against men, it's just not as easy.
Anyone you credit with kind of pushing you in that direction and really helping you sharpen up those parts of your game, which aren't exactly, always the sexiest to learn when you're growing up?
Well, my uncle and my cousin, they played and had been there, done that. My dad, obviously, but, Dane Jackson, he's still, he's the associate coach at North Dakota still. Just the fun that he put into the game, the work that he'd put in with us, the extra time, the extra little detail. He had a long pro career and, a ton of experience as a player and a player coach. And for him to put that time in with the guy at the time that was, not in any special teams and basically just there because of my scholarship, the program could have easily given up at me at an early time and threw me away. And, they did the opposite, especially Jax. He really committed to, making me a pro and, teaching me how to block shots, get pucks off the glass and out, and just, the little details that when you turn pro, some guys still have to learn them, but I was already, polished enough in a pro game that I could find some success.
You're in such an interesting spot there at the end. Obviously, you took on such a big leadership role with the Condors, and with that obviously comes, helping out the younger guys. And you're a big part. When I was down for game 1 of the Cup final doing media day, one of the stories I wrote was asking a bunch of guys about who down in Bakersfield helped push you here, because I mean the fingerprints of that organization were obviously all over that Oilers team. But I found it interesting when you said, even down to that one of those final games in Calgary, you were playing for a call-up. Was that ever a tough balance for you to be like, man, I got to help these kids, I got to have that leadership role, but also like you're pseudo competing against those guys trying to earn call-ups as well?
Yeah, you know what? As long as the guys that I was, competing with were as respectful to me as I was to them, and just the relationship that we had, it was easy. In no case did that ever show up. But internal competition it's good for the organization. I think it's good for the individual. We enjoy going to work down here, or they do now still. I think the culture is work, but when the lights go off, you got to enjoy each other. So that's kind of the culture that I just kind of tagged along with when I got here to Bakersfield. And obviously as I grew into a role, I just kept that energy and kind of momentum alive. So I wanted to do it individually. Obviously you want to play in the NHL, and if you're playing in North America, that's the goal. And I just thought, as a leader and someone that guys are looking up to, if I'm just okay with shutting it down and collecting my paycheck in the American League, that just, it kind of distills in the rest of the room, and, it kind of turns the American League, instead of, one step away from the NHL, it's almost like you're taking a step back. And I think if you're going to have success like they did this year, I think those guys definitely benefited from, those experiences down here.
When again you're day to day with these guys, they're your teammates throughout the year, and for us from the outsider perspective, one of the big revelations with this Oilers team over the playoff run was Philip Broberg's emergence. Coming up, shows up in the middle of the Western Conference Final, then by the end of the Stanley Cup Final, it's like, whoa, this guy's a lock to be a top 4 D-man at the NHL level next season. Is there a part of you when you see some of that, a guy like Broberg, even a guy like Holloway as well, where they get the opportunity and thrive with it? Is there a part of it from your perspective where you're like, I knew it. I knew they had it in them this whole time?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. You know what? When you talk to people like in different circumstances, I think the reality of their future is, it's already kind of planned out, and, their toolbox and their IQ and their work ethic and personality. With Halsey and Brovey especially, their talent level and their physical toolbox is insane. Both of them are, so naturally gifted, especially with their skating, and, their ability to impact the game away from the puck is, something you just can't teach. The one thing that I saw from both of them was when they came down this last time, there was more of a maturity about them, and there wasn't that young look in their eye that they were taking in information and it was almost overfilling their head, and it was too fast. I think, they came down this year, both of them, and they were men. They've grown into their bodies, and their brains have developed to a point where when they were playing freely. They weren't paralyzed by analysis. And, we saw it every night down here, man. They dominated the game, like on the puck and away from the puck, both of them. So, kudos to them for being patient, and then, obviously seizing the moment when they got the opportunity. But, again, it's watching those playoffs, man. It was like watching my brothers play, like I was so invested, obviously for the organization and everybody else, but, especially the guys, that I spent so much time with. And then things really heated up when picks went in there. That was extra nervy.
Yeah, I can imagine. So let me throw on your analyst hat for me a little bit. Who's coming up next? Who's a guy down in Baco who, you see working on it day to day, you're going up against with in practice, and you're like, man, all this guy needs is that shot, and he's going to stick?
You know what? Raph for me is the obvious answer. And, when you talk about physical ability and toolbox, Raph's got, every tool in the shed. He has it. Physically, I don't understand it because I don't have that, certain skill set, but the way he can shoot a puck, the way he can protect the puck down low with his size, with his skating ability, I think he needs an opportunity. And, I've been there obviously in the past in my career. And if you get an opportunity and it's 2 or 3 shifts and everyone says you get an opportunity because, you were slotted on the 3rd line, usually by the end of the game, you're not finishing on that 3rd line. So, obviously the organization wants him to succeed, but for me, the way he can shoot the puck and, play physical, and he can throw bombs too. Like he has a backup game. He can fight, he can play physical, and he can play a grindy style of hockey. I think if you put him with, a couple of distributors that are looking to be a pass first player, he's going to find a lot of success at the next level.
Man, the analyst hat, I think, fits you well. You were talking about what you're doing next. Is media in the future for Brad Malone?
I don't know. I got this paralyzed face from Lyme disease. It's like a hard media sell with them. But I did like some color commentating with Holtby like a couple years ago during COVID when I got hurt, and I got more compliments about my color commentating than my playing. So maybe it's something I should look into. Maybe I should text Bob and see what's his retirement plan.
Yeah, get old Staff Daddy out of there. Get up there with Bob for a little bit. But in all seriousness, have you considered some things? Like you mentioned wanting to stay in hockey. So is it coaching? Is it pursuing something like media? Like what are kind of, when you sit there and dream about what could be next, what do you want to be doing?
Yeah, you know what? I really want to be in the front office, somehow, some way. Obviously, there's a process and a ladder to get there, and a learning curve. Obviously, I've had a great education as a player, but to learn the business, to learn the ins and outs of how things are conducted and the process of making decisions, and how those decisions are calculated is something that I need to sit back and learn, and basically get an internship and a bird's eye view of how things work. But there's the work and then there's the life balance, and that's kind of what my wife and I are going through right now, just with her past experience with her dad, and moving around a lot with playing and then coaching. It's something we value is just a lifestyle of setting some roots down, and certainly in the business of hockey that's not easy in the coaching world. So I think I'd be a great coach, especially an assistant coach, just with the type of rapport I have with people. But I think that's something that it'd have to be, the right opportunity at the right time. But again, you need experience to get into the pro game. So to do that would probably be a lot of sacrifice on the family, and probably should have retired at 30 if I was going to be a coach. But when I'm 35 with, two kids that are, going to be in kindergarten here in a year and a half, it's going to be difficult.
As they say in hockey, shoot for the stars, and if you miss, end up in media. Media is always the fallback, Brad. Always aim higher than media. All right, couple more quick ones before we wrap up. This is a question I love asking to guys at the end of their career, and it's, I mean, you had, 14 years pro. You had college before that. Obviously, your days growing up as well. Who's the best player you played with who never made it? Like someone who in practices, in games, in the minors, like whatever it was, you were like, this guy is so damn good. And then you sit back after a couple of years and like they're gone. They're not playing anymore. Best player you played with who never made it.
That's difficult. One guy that comes to mind, he's a newfie, Zach O'Brien. I still think he's playing out in Newfoundland, and that guy's hockey IQ and slipperiness with the puck it was insane. He was here my first year in Bakersfield, and him and Josh Curry, a couple Maritime guys, we obviously we got along very well, and probably distant cousins somehow. But no, he was one of those guys that just a little undersized, probably didn't take the gym as seriously in his younger days as he should have. But in terms of talent and IQ, it was crazy.
His numbers, I just pulled them up quickly. He had 60 points in 54 games last year with the Newfoundland Growlers. Like every year, that dude was ripping up the ECHL. That is crazy.
How old is he? He's like, what, 30? He's got to be in his 30s.
Yeah, he is. I haven't remembered. He's 32. So, yeah, and he's signed next year as well. He's going overseas. Did you ever have the overseas temptation a little bit? Just like, all right, I'm going to go to Sweden and like make my couple $100,000 there?
No, I didn't. I think, once I got to Bakersfield and I, kind of got integrated in the community, and, I like golfing. I like the schedule. I like to travel in the Pacific. In my opinion, outside the NHL, this is the best division to play in hockey professionally. So Switzerland was tempting. Russia probably would have been a little bit of a different situation if I wasn't a father, but yeah, I'm taking the Bako juice all the way.
I love it. Okay, last one. I know we're keeping you longer than I said we would, but I need to ask you this one. You had a handful of stops in different minor league markets, and this is more of a thing in like minor league baseball, but it's the wacky promotions. Like I always love the pictures of like all-star MLB players who are in the minors, but it happens to fall on like SpongeBob night. So it's like Max Scherzer pitching in a SpongeBob jersey. In your minor league career, what is the wackiest or like weirdest off the wall promotion that you remember just like sitting in the arena being like, what are they even doing here?
I got two for you because I've been talking about this lately. In Cleveland, my first year, it was bring your dog to the game night, and they kept ringing the doorbell during play. So I don't know, there probably been like 8,000, people there, and like a bunch of dogs just like start barking while we're on the power play when the doorbell rings. So I thought that was hilarious. And then here in Bakersfield, I think my first year, they did like an underwear toss. So like it'd be like a teddy bear toss for the first goal. So it was like socks and underwear and bras and stuff. So I thought that was I thought that was a little more than PG, but I thought it was pretty good.
That is
we were scraping up, like, I mean, I'm assuming they were all new, but like there was just bras on the ice. So like after we scored, we had to get on the ice and like pick all these up for a charity or whatever, like a Red Cross drive. So I thought that was pretty witty.
That is pretty good. Did you ever have to wear like an extremely goofy jersey for a game? Like Bakersfield usually kept it pretty good. The Condors had some nice threads, but like before that, was there a weird promo jersey that you're like, this is dumb?
No, we didn't. No, I don't think so. I've seen some like online that I think I'd enjoy, but yeah, nothing really too crazy. Like maybe some St. Patty's Day ones that I was a fan of and the Italians hated, but other than that, it was good.
That's good. All right, like I said, this flew by, man. We said we were going to keep you for like 15. We ended up going almost 25. I really appreciate your time. Congrats on a fantastic career again, over 800 or nearly 800 professional games over 14 years. That is absolutely nothing to scoff at. It's crazy impressive. Appreciate your time, man. Excited to see what you get up to next.
All right, guys. If I don't get a job, I'll be calling. I'll be your color guy. I'll let you know.
Hey, there's money in podcasting, Brad. Don't scoff at it. I'd love to have you on. Weekly analyst Brad Malone. That has a nice ring to it.
There you go.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, wrapping up the show for our friends at Betway. The closing portion of the show is brought to you by Betway, where you can get a free bet worth up to $200. All you need to do is head to Betway, place a wager with no minimum amount required, and if your bet loses, you're eligible for a free bet up to $200. Download Betway today. Sign up, make an account. First off, Brad Malone was freaking awesome. What a beauty. What an absolute beauty. And Brad, I'm dead serious, and he now knows this because we were talking afterwards too. I would love to have that guy on every week, especially if he's staying down in Baco and like doing a few things there. But wherever he goes, as long as he's following the Oilers and following the NHL, that is a guy I can chat with for 20 minutes a week throughout the regular season. So I'd love to make that work. But like he said, he's got management aspirations. He's got a bunch of different stuff kind of going on here. So I think he's got a future in hockey. He was an absolutely beloved teammate. Everyone you talk to around the Condors absolutely loves the guy. There's a reason he stayed on as the captain. There's a reason he was able to keep getting deals from the Oilers because they value what he brought on and off the ice. So love that chat with Brad Malone. Some great stories there. He is an absolute beauty. So give him a follow on Twitter. He is on Twitter. That's actually how I reach out to him, but he is on Twitter. And yeah, follow him wherever he goes next. Really appreciate him giving us some time. Really appreciate you tuning in to the show today. That is going to be a wrap on a Chill Friday edition of the program. We'll be back Monday. Liam and I both in the mix. It might be our only show together in all of July though. So you won't want to miss it. Monday at noon, another show Wednesday with just Liam because I'm on vacation. Next Friday, it'll be Liam and maybe an interview that I got lined up earlier in the week that I'll play for you on Friday. So that's what's coming up next week. Stay cool, Edmonton. Enjoy your weekend, and we will chat with you again on Monday. Oil up. What's up, Nation citizens? If you like that video, then you need to be subscribed to the Oilers Nation YouTube. Podcasts, live shows, exclusive interviews, and analysis. Everything you need from your favorite voices at Oilers Nation. And you don't want to miss any of it, so hammer that subscribe button.